In the last part, I talked about the possibility of the changing environment. If we have difficulties in changing the perception of the other people or other countries, perhaps we might be able to change the environment. And then we might escape from anarchy. We might escape from the negative externalities of anarchy. That's the World Government School. In other words, why don't have a one world government, or central government in the world? So let us define world government first. World government, sometimes called cosmocracy, is a concept of a single political authority, a single country for all humanity. One country or one central government governs or exercises the power all over the world. So it generally entails some form of the government through the single state or single polity with a jurisdiction over the entire world. In other words, one country controls the entire world. Such a government can be produced through violent and compulsory world domination. In other words, one strong country have war against all the world and conquer all of them and dominate the world. Or through peaceful and voluntary supranational union, like the United Nations. All the countries in the world agree or give up a little bit of the power or responsibility to the supranational entity, like United Nations. And then we can have a peaceful and voluntary transfer of power to that entity. So we can have world government. In other words, world government can be made by one country's violence or a peaceful transfer to a supranational union. And let me introduce some earlier thoughts of the establishment of world government. First, Immanuel Kant's Confederation. He said, if the civilized people in Europe make confederation and all those nations share liberal values and they cooperate willingly and peacefully, that's the world government in Europe, in the European continent. That's the basic idea of the confederation. Second thought was the supporters of the Anglosphere dreamed of a condominium of the British Empire. From the 17th to 19th century, the British Empire maintained territories without sunset, without any sunrise, or only sunrises. So if the British Empire expanded their dominance all over the world, probably that condominium might prove or might promote the peace and stability of the world. Third one, obviously, Lenin, Stalin, and Mao, the socialists. Because they had different vision. Where a single communist country with a world revolution dissolves all national borders. In that case, one single socialist country maintains the peace and stability of the world system. That's plausible too. The last one, Wilson, American President Wilson. He said that a more liberal and democratic world order is needed. Over there, nations work together against the common threats to humanity. So liberal and democratic countries all together cooperate in order to get rid of the common threats to humanity, from disease to war. Also, its crystallization or embodiment was the League of Nations by the Woodrow Wilson. So the basic idea of the League of Nations made by American President Wilson, but unfortunately, the United States was not a participatory of the League of Nations because American Congress did not ratify the government's participation into the League of Nations. So League of Nations started without the United States, even though it started with the American idea. So the World Government School believes that the causes of the world conflict, lie in international environment. So they ask a question, why don't we change it? So a supreme power or a group of powers dominates the world and exercises international laws. Supreme power. Can we make any contemporary examples of any world government? Obviously, the United Nations, right? It's a supranational entity that could govern the world as a world government. But in reality, it doesn't. What about EU, the group of countries? It's a world government in the European continent. But obviously, only the EU governs only Europe and European countries, European members. What about the United States? Perhaps the US have a world war against all the humanities in the world and conquer all the nations and establish a world government. In other words, the US unifies the planet Earth. The thing is this, if the US wants it so bad, it is capable of doing that. The question is, why does not US do it? There could be many answers to it. Why the US does not dream of a dominant country in all of the world? Many scholars and people said many answers to that. But one dominant answer is in the contemporary technology is not enough for the one single country to dominate all of the world. So perhaps maybe some centuries later, a strong country appears and it can dominate the world on all humanities. So theoretically, it is possible to have a world government, right? Theoretically. But problem is, why don't we have it? The final question rises, is it possible for one great power to govern the world? What about Roman Empire? What, the Mongol Empire? Or Chinese empires, particularly Tang Dynasty? Or Napoleonic Empire of France? Or the USA? And what if one great power dominates all of the world, all humanities? What about the problems of ethnicity, history, different culture, religion, and language, all those kind of stuff? If we achieve one unified world in this planet, the people will get better off. It's a different question. So anyway, theoretically, it is possible to have a world government, but in reality, it's not easy to establish it. Also at the same time, we don't guarantee that we might achieve peace and stability. we might get out of the negative externalities of anarchy, but we might face another challenges out of the variety of ethnicity, variety of culture, religion, and language, and others.